7 minutes in the stage. So that's a bit of a disaster in any case.
At the first rebunch in Ermelo, the Habig-Judd combination had dropped way down the field. Predictably enough, Damso and Bonafide were leading the rally ahead of Kun and Hodgson. Brandon Olivier were third, with the old firm of Van der Merwe and Bossel fourth, and Faken and Fourie a superb fifth after a spirited early drive. In recent years, Ermelo has been the start venue for the Castrol Rally, and the friendly Mpumalanga town retained its links with the event this year via the rebunch and a combination tar and dirt special stage when the rally got underway again. Serge Damso and Vito Bonafide in the Castrol Toyota Conquest had built up a lead of just more than a minute at the rebunch and looked to be well in control of proceedings. It was still early days, but the whole Damso and Bonafide were clamping on the event meant that the likes of Enzo Kun and Guy Hodgson in the Bangford Hyundai accent were constantly having to play catch-up. The Hyundai had the legs on the Toyota in a straight line, but Kun was still coming to grips with the different driving techniques needed for turbo power. With the Castrol Rally seldom won on the first day, Kun and Hodgson were probably quite happy to be in second place. After losing time in the special stage prior to the rebunch, Jannie Habig and Douglas Judd in the Stanbreck Golf had more catching up to do than most. Their troubles were compounded in special stage 6 with a side shaft problem that cost them more time when they could ill afford another setback. Special stage 6 also saw the demise of Etienne Lawrence and Robert Paisley in the team Total Toyota Conquest.
That's fast right, 100, easy right. Right, and then?
Paisley and Lawrence went out with a broken motor, with Habig and Judd having to repair a lower control arm on the Stanbreck Golf suspension. After losing over a minute in the special stage 6, it was turning out to be a trying afternoon for Habig and Judd. Special stage 6 also saw the end of the Glenn Edmonds Gary McIntyre Mitsubishi with differential problems, and the casualty list was starting to mount. History was made in 1976 when Andre Liebenberg and Jan Kriek gave Ford the first of their 3 Castrol Rally successes.
Medium right, fast left over rock, slow right, and then caution, slow right over slow jump, slow right over slow jump, slow left over slow dip, medium right over medium dip, medium right over medium dip, medium dip, 50, long fast left.
It was on stage 7 that disaster struck for Serge Damso and Vito Bonafide in the Castrol Toyota Conquest. The pair went out of the 25th Castrol Rally in spectacular fashion.
Serge has just had a major accident at about 200 k's an hour. He rolled it head over heels, so we're out on our own now.
The Castrol Toyota was much the worse for wear after flipping end over end at around 180 kilometers per hour. With all rally cars fitted with sturdy steel roll cages and driver and navigator further protected by 3-point seat harnesses, the pair escaped without injury. Hopes of a 4th Castrol Rally win were in tatters, with the reigning South African champions now reduced to a spectator role.
Well, it was a long, fast section with a couple of a drift up and down, and after the third one, we took off and sort of the back kicked up and went in a nose and back. Rolled. Fortunately, that's one of those things.
Disappointment was etched on the faces of the Castrol Toyota service crew, but the show must go on, even if it's missing 2 of its stars. Enzo Kun and Guy Hodgson were now firmly entrenched in the lead in the Bangford Hyundai accent, with the prospect of Kun emulating his father's win on the inaugural Castrol now a real possibility. Although now way down the pecking order, Jannie Habig and Douglas Judd were second on the road and pushing for all they were worth. After their troubles before and after the Ermelo rebunch, Habig and Judd had plenty of leeway to catch up. Habig had the instinct of a charger and looked as though he wanted to wipe out the deficit in one special stage. Habig's style of driving makes for spectacular action, and he was second quickest to Kun on the stage. Steaming along behind Habig and Judd were Sorrel van der Merwe and Frans Boshoff in the Sassel Daewoo. Much of the ring rustiness after a 3-year layoff appeared to have already rubbed away, and Supervan was starting to find his rhythm. Van der Merwe doesn't particularly like front-wheel drive cars, but he was driving smoothly and the performance of the two veterans and the Korean car had already opened a few eyes. Behind the Castrol Daewoo, the Autotech VW Golf in the hands of Terry Brand and Marty Olivier was starting to emerge as a surprise package of the rally. The Golf was involved in a terrific tussle with the Team Total Toyota Conquest of Jürgen Fecken and Neil Ferree. The spectacular Fecken was on a mission and throwing the Conquest around with gay abandon. The young Pretoria civil engineer looked to be enjoying himself hugely, with a good battle developing between 3 or 4 cars behind the front runners. Tony Ball and Brian Duncan, in another Team Total entry, had moved up to join the fray and were very much embroiled in the mid-top 10 battle that was starting to capture their interest as the rally headed towards the Amsterdam rebunch and Swaziland. The husband and wife team of Ben and Isabel van der Westhuizen in one of the 4 factory Castrol Daewoo entries were gradually moving through the field and had also settled into a steady rhythm at the front of the Group N category. A good scrap was also developing in the Video Sport Pioneer Plastics Off-Road Challenge, where R.P. Reinicker and Robin Houghton in the Bankfin Toyota Land Cruiser were locked in battle with the Castrol Toyota Hilux of Cassie Coetzee and Richard Leek. The Ford Cosworth of Graham Nichols and Ron Billiard had put in some impressive stage times and was mixing it with the Van der Westhuizens and 2 other Daewoo entries in the hands of Kenyan crews. The Castrol Rally fact file with Serge Damso, the most successful Toyota driver in the history of the event, with 3 victories in 1991, 92 and 95. With the rally edging towards the second rebunch at Amsterdam and the crossing into Swaziland, the unpredictable weather conditions continued. As darkness fell and the spotlights came out, the weather conditions compounded what were already tricky conditions, with mist also a factor. Night special stages are notorious for sorting out the men from the boys, and for many crews it was time to make a tactical decision.
I don't know so much about a waiting game. I believe you've still got to keep a pace up. Because you play a waiting game, other people are going to catch and pass you, and then you're doing the chasing. So rather just hold a certain pace. We've agreed on a percentage pace, and that's what we're going to run at. And we'll see what happens tomorrow afternoon.
Some crews, of course, are happier in the dark than others.
I like the night driving. Night driving is usually where we catch up a little time, so we'll see what we can do tonight.
At the Amsterdam regroup, Koen and Hodgson had a comfortable lead over Brandt and Olivier. Behind them, Van der Merwe and Boshoff were slotted into 3rd, with Fecken and Ferree 4th and Ball and Duncan 5th. After a tough time of it in wet and muddy night stages on the last leg of day 1 between Amsterdam and the first overnight stop at Mbabane, crews were steeling themselves for more tricky conditions on day 2. Sections 4 and 5 will run in the forests in the Maklamba-Nyatsi and Bunya areas, with the prospect of more rain on a day that again provided for cold and overcast weather conditions. The first night stages in Swaziland took a heavy toll on crews who either fell by the wayside or lost valuable time. It was not everyone's cup of tea, but the Castrol Rally is not an event for the faint of heart.
I love the night, and I really enjoy the wait. You know, it's a real challenge, and that's what rallying is about. So I'm really having fun, and a lot of people are complaining and get sick at night when it's misty and that, but I think that's what rallying's about. So I enjoy that, and you know, I'd say I'm still going hard. I'm just changing gears at lower RPM to keep the pressure on myself and keep concentrating.
Yeah, I feel very proud of Enzo these days. He's doing well, and I think we had a lot of influence in him and the family, that he started off rallying at a very early stage. This is the main thing. A lot of people don't realize that he's still fairly young, but he's got a lot of experience. He's got a lot of rally kilometers behind him, and I think that will assist him in a long event like this.
Ian, 25 years ago you competed in this event in a Triumph TR2. Today you stand as team manager with young Enzo on the brink of winning this event. How does it all feel?
Well, when I competed in the Triumph, Enzo was still a toddler, and it's nice to see him come up and do as well as what he's doing. I'm very proud of him.
Paolo Piazza Musso's father also competed in the 1972 Castrol.
Certainly his experience has helped me, but I'm a normal human being. I'm also nervous in the conditions. You don't feel you've got full control, so we take it easy. I try and use the knowledge that's put through to me.
We'll try and stay on the road, do it to the best of our ability.
And what influence has your father had on you in terms of making a decision to go rallying?
He was, funny enough, very negative over the decision. He wanted me to play golf or tennis, but I always say once you've got petrol in the veins, you just can't get rid of it. I mean, you just have to get in yourself.
At the overnight stop, Kuhn and Hodgson were firmly entrenched in the lead. A late problem the previous night dropped Van der Merwe and Boshoff to third behind the Brandt-Olivier combination. A ding-dong battle was also going on at the head of the Video Sport Pioneer Plastics Off-Road Challenge. Among the spectators at the first special stage of the second day was Vita Bonafide, who was hiding his disappointment behind a broad smile. There was a festive air about the Swaziland stages, but there was nothing frivolous about Enzo Kuhn and Guy Hodgson as they set about consolidating their position in the Bankfin Hyundai. Conditions were far from perfect, and with four-wheel drive, the Hyundai had a huge advantage over the other front runners. Terry Brand and Marty Olivier in the Autotech Golf GTI started the day with a handy lead over Cyril van der Merwe and Frans Boshoff in the Formula 2 specification Castrol Int. With the Autotech car also developing a mysterious engine misfire, Brand and Olivier were under siege from Supervan and Boshoff from the word go. The Castrol Int was soon taking big chunks of time off Brand and Olivier, and it was obvious by now that Van der Merwe had shaken off the rustiness of 3 years away from a rally car. Day 2 had already claimed a big fish in the form of Jannie Habig and Douglas Judge, who retired the Stanbrick VW Golf with a broken fuel rack. Kuhn was taking full advantage of the Hyundai Accent's four-wheel drive configuration, with Brandt and Olivier still under siege from Van der Merwe and Boshoff, who were starting to fly. The persistent misfire slowing down the Autotech Golf simply added to the pressure Van der Merwe and Boshoff were starting to apply. There were also early day 2 problems for Paolo Piazzamosso and Cindy Harding in the Team Total Fiat Uno. They were cruising along with a broken control arm. Murphy's Law saw the control arm break on the first of 3 special stages where no servicing was allowed, and the Team Total car was rapidly dropping down the pecking order. There was also a great deal of interest now in the battle going on in the Video Sport Pioneer Plastics Off-Road Challenge between Arpi Reinicke and Robin Houghton in the Bankfin Toyota Land Cruiser, and Cassie Coetzee and Richard Leek in the Castrol Toyota Hilux. Both crews were in the top 10, with Coetzee and Leek starting to rapidly catch the Land Cruiser. The Team Total Golf of Natalia and Tony Ball and Brian Duncan had run consistently in the top 10 and was embroiled in a battle with the 2 off-road entries. Top 10 runners who started the day behind the Piazzamosso Harding car were moving up the ladder, but as on the first day, the fight going on from 4th to 10th was starting to get interesting. The Castrol Int of Ben and Isabel van der Westhuizen had also moved into the top 10. A steady drive had taken the husband and wife combination into the lead in the Group N category. Behind them, the adventures of Jürgen Fecken and Neil Fourie continued in the 4th Team Total entry, running in the top 10. After dropping down the order via an off-road excursion, the pair were on another of their now familiar charges. Fecken and Fourie were 9th, with the top 10 rounded out by Natal crew Brian Martin and Brian Clifton, who had unobtrusively soldiered along in the Castrol Toyota Conquest. Zimbabweans Hannes Kruger and Kenneth Rowley were starting to produce some impressive stage times in the ex-Brady Dabner Toyota Conquest 4x4. There were 1 or 2 hiccups for the pair and problems for Terry Brandt and Marty Olivier in the Autotech Golf, who had surrendered 2nd place to Van der Merwe and Boshoff.
Yes, we've picked up a misfire. We hit a puddle, and after that we had a misfire. The guys are just checking to see if there's any moisture anyway.
With Supervan and Boshoff back in 2nd place, the Castrol Int team was oozing confidence.
Well, it feels great. 89, we had a similar situation with regard to the rain. So far I'm very confident and positive, but it's still a long event, and we'll just hang in there.
Back in time with the Castrol Rally fact file. Jeff Mortimer's 2 Castrol victories came 13 years apart. With the 4-wheel drive Bankfin Hyundai at home in the tricky Day 2 conditions, Enzo Kuhn and Guy Hodgson continued to stretch their lead. Koen wasn't holding back and was widening the gap despite flashes of the old mastery from Sorrel van der Merwe in the Castrol Int. Paolo Piazzo Musso was now finding the team total Fiat Uno almost undrivable.
I mean, more serious than that.
Paolo was also proving that rally drivers do get a little touchy at times.
What is it? Come.
With the rally heading towards the first rebunch of the day at Mhlambanyatsi, all 4 factory debuts were still running strongly. Sunny Aslam and Abdul Sidi were lying second in the Group N category, but were being chased by off-road crew Colin Frankenberg and Tony Yeo in the 4-sticks Range Rover, who were enjoying themselves hugely. After a good run, Special Stage 19 saw the end of the Golf GTI in the hands of Jacques Buerta and Tony Martins. They were headed for retirement with gearbox failure. It was a major disappointment for the crew, but behind them, Kali van der Merwe and Andre Duplessis were scoring a few points for those competitors out in cars getting a little long in the tooth. The pair were putting up some splendid stage times in the aging Nissan Stanza. At the front of the field, rally leaders Enzo Koen and Guy Hodgson continued to edge away from Sorrel van der Merwe and Frans Boshoff. The only problem at this stage for the Bankfin Hyundai crew was to settle on a pace that eliminated the risk factor and at the same time prevented them from falling into a sense of false security. With a day and a half still to go, Koen and Hodgson had to reach a tactical decision that satisfied the best of both worlds. For van der Merwe and Boshoff in the Castrol Int Cello, the option was a little more clear-cut. They had to try and force the pace and create as much pressure as they could muster. Van der Merwe and Boshoff were steadily pulling away from Terry Brand and Marty Olivier in the Autotech Golf, and their problem was not what was happening behind them. The battle of the Toyotas was still in full swing in the Video Sport Pioneer Plastics Off-Road Challenge. R.P. Raniker and Robin Houghton, whose father Roger also competed in the first Castrol Rally, were holding a tenuous lead in the Bankfin Toyota Land Cruiser. Jürgen Fecken and Neil Ferree were still on a charge in the Team Total Toyota Conquest, with the Kingsway debut of Sammy Aslan and Abdul Sidi proceeding at a more sedate pace, but still second in the Group N category. Running in tandem with the Kingsway car was another Kenyan crew in Asad Anwar and Supi Soin in another of the factory debuts. One of the characters of South African motorsport was competing in his 24th Castrol Rally. Springbok Spotty Woodhead navigated for many of the top names down the years, and in recent seasons had switched to driving a VW Golf that had completed more than 50 national championship events. Spotty and Caroline Swan were having a good dice with Cliffy Barker and Malcolm Jabir in the 4-sticks Land Rover Defender.
Well, so far it's been a rally of water and fan belts and things like that. You know, we've had the fan belt hop off once, we've had the belt that holds the alternator come off once. So we've done about 4 stages, just keeping it cool and just trying to get through the stages, not to lose time. We've now put some water in. We're using the medics to give us some water. And, the car's still going all right. We just want to keep it together to the end.
We had a bit of hassle yesterday, but today we're going quite nicely. We obviously won't make up time on RP and Cassie, but I think we've caught Colin now. So I think we're lying third in the Video Sport Challenge.
What were the problems you had yesterday?
Well, we caught that big storm in stage 4 and lost 5 minutes, and then our car cut out in one of the night stages, and we spent about 11, 12 minutes extra in the stage, plus got a bit of lateness.
A Castrol Rally fact file. Ford has won the Castrol 3 times, with Sorrel van der Merwe responsible for 2 of those victories.